Okay, so we are over here and I have a sample like a C# project. We can do it in Java too. Like basically the code is almost the same. So we are at this location. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll actually create a class for the node. So we'll say node.cs, and then we'll say using system, and then we'll say class node, and we are not doing the templates over here. We're just taking the data just for simplicity. So we'll say public integer, and we'll say data. And then the next thing we'll do is we'll say a node, which will be the next node. Okay. So the simple example where there is a node and the data. Next thing what we'll do is we'll actually create a class of linked list. Okay. And using and class linked list class. Okay. So this is the linked list class. The minimum thing that we need is we need a head. Right, so we'll say node, we'll make it public. So we'll say public node head. So there's a head node, right? Then we'll say public linked list class. We'll just write the constructor. We're not doing anything in the constructor right now. We'll just say head is equal to null. Okay, so that's basically the class of the linked list. Next, what we want to do is, let's say we want to add a node inside this linked list. So one thing we can do is we can add it to the head, or we can add it to the tail. So let's actually write the code for that. So we'll say public public void add head node, and then we'll say integer data. One thing we will do is for the node.cs, we will actually make the default constructor. So we'll say private node, so that nobody can just initialize this, and we'll create a public node with integer data. And we'll say this dot data is equal to data, and this dot next is equal to null. Okay, so this is how we actually create the node. Okay, so we have the linked list class.cs, and then we add the head node. So first thing we'll check is we actually do not need to check. What we can do is we have to create a node for that. So we'll say node add is equal to a new node with data. So we create a new node, and this node is basically pointing to null right now. And there is a head node, so we'll say add dot next will be equal to head, and then so this is adding to the head, and then head will basically become equal to the add node. So that is all the code that we need to do. If the head node is null, in that case add dot next will be pointing to null, which it was already pointing to null, and head will always become this. So this was adding the head, adding the node to the head. Let's actually add a function where we want to add it to the tail. We'll just copy this and we will paste it. Okay, so add node to tail, add node to tail or something, right? So in this case also we will basically first create a node, and then we'll check if head is equal to null, which means that if the node was actually if the linked list was basically empty, then in that case we'll say head is equal to add node, and then we just return. Okay, otherwise we need a temporary variable, so we'll say node temp is equal to the head node, and then we'll say while temp node dot next is not equal to null, we will say temp is equal to temp.next. So basically we create a temp node and then we keep traversing the linked list till we reach the very end, and we know that there is no cycles because we haven't added any cycles in this linked list. So we are reaching the very end, and then at that point we'll say temp.next will be equal to add, and add is already pointing to null, so we are good to go over here. So let's actually test it out. So we will come to the program.cs and we will remove this part, and we'll say linked list class linked list is equal to new linked list class, and then we'll say linked list dot add the head node, and let's say add 1, and linked list dot add node to the tail. Let's say we add 5, and we'll add 3 or 4 more. Okay, so 5, 7, -1, and 3. Okay, so that is there. We actually have to print the node. Print the nodes too, so we'll add a function for printing the node. So we'll say public void print linked list, and what we'll say is node temp is equal to head. So we'll take a temporary node which points to the head, and then we'll say while temp temp is not equal to null. While temp actually does not become equal to null, what we will do is we'll say console.write, and we'll say console.write temp.data plus, we just put an arrow. Okay, so we'll keep printing the temporary node, and at this point the temporary node actually becomes equal to null. So then we'll say console.writeLine, and we'll say null. Okay, I think this should work. Let's actually print it out and see what happens. Let's test it out. So we are over here, and we'll say linked list dot print the linked list. Okay, and we will say debug, start debugging, and it should basically print it. I don't know what happened. Maybe we actually did something wrong. So we'll come over here. Okay, so I think what happened is if we come over here, like we did not do temp is equal to temp.next. We were not moving the temp, so temp is equal to temp.next. Okay, I think this should work now. So let's actually run this, and we will see. We'll go to the next node and print list. So we have 1, 5, 7, -1, and 3, and then null. Okay, so that works.